I've spent nearly 20 years teaching over 50,000 professionals, consultants, lawyers, other experts, how to level up their careers. And I've discovered that there's only one way that a professional can take control of their career and steer it in the way that they want. I learned this the hard way, starting my career as an actuary. Each day, I go into the office to fulfill the work my firm had promised to clients, building complicated modeling tools and coding spreadsheets. But my time was limited. I could only do so much work. And the firm had a natural limit on what they could pay me, a roughly predefined fraction of how much I could bill my clients in a year. Though it was a good living that I had worked hard to create, my income and my impact was capped at a certain level. Up until that point, I viewed my job like a factory assembly line. The client ordered a specific analysis from our firm. It was like raw materials came down the assembly line: data, goals, and client timelines. I then organized those inputs into complicated financial projections, presentations, and charts, which were then shipped as the final product to the client, exactly as ordered, on time, and on budget. This was good work, which helped the client, but this assembly mindset meant that I was limited in the value I could provide. No matter how much faster I got at completing the work or how much I improved at my work doing skills, I was delivering the same type of results, just a bit faster and slightly higher quality. To grow, I had to give up my current approach of just doing work that was brought to me by the assembly line of the business and embrace a new mindset. The first principle of business development: I had to stop working on predefined problems. Think about it. If you're working on predefined problems, you're limited to predefined solutions. Business development is the practice of identifying new sources of value between two or more parties. To get out of the mindset of assembling work you've been assigned, you need to do something that's a bit intimidating. You have to leave the factory floor of pure execution and go talk to clients to discover new possibilities to work on. What if your existing client could use much more of the current solution, but didn't realize that was an option? What if your client needs a different solution you can help with? Something they don't yet realize. What if there were new potential clients who need your expertise but don't know about you yet? All of these solutions are wins for you and the client. They add more value to both parties than the current status quo. This is why I like to say that business development isn't something you do to a client. It's something you do for them. It's an act of deep service where both parties are better off than before. But there's a common trap that happens once you start to change your mindset from simply doing work to discovering new possibilities to create value. Once you manage to get away from the assembly line and in front of your client, your first impulse will be to share how much amazing value you can offer. You've spent years understanding your product and industry. You deliver reliable results, and you've solved complex problems for a wide range of impressive clients. With just a glance at your prospect's website and materials, you immediately know the perfect solution that could help them. So it's easy to spend the first 45 minutes of a 60-minute meeting talking about your solutions, all the things you can help them with. But unfortunately, while this feels good to you, it's no better than throwing spaghetti at the wall for 45 minutes of a call and hoping you're sharing something that sticks. And what's worse, they feel sold to. The problem here is that you've gone from solving predefined problems to telling clients predefined solutions. You're in a new situation, but you're still relying on your old instincts, the instincts of an expert work doer. When you lead with solutions, you're trying to brute force your way through a maze and hope you can find your way out before you die of hunger and exhaustion. But what if instead you could ask the client to give you a map with the perfect route through the maze already identified? Here's the new plan. In the first 45 minutes of a 60-minute client meeting, don't present a single solution. Instead, use questions to fall in love with their problem. This is the second principle of business development. In order to discover new sources of value, you must ask targeted questions to discover as much as you can about the client's problem in their own words. When you do this, you can spend the remaining meeting time walking straight to the treasure, discussing the exact topics that clients have already told you they're interested in. But if you stop there, you will only be generating a tiny percentage of the potential value for you and your client. Top performers who eventually rise up to become senior partners, managing directors, or senior account executives don't generate value how you'd think. When I first made the shift to winning new work for my firm, I thought I needed to focus most of my time on big moments. The moments where work was won, boardrooms, business trips, deal-winning dinners. I watched my top performing mentor and modeled how he spent his time, how he talked to clients, how he structured proposals. But as I paid attention to where his time was spent, I realized that most of his time wasn't spent on making presentations. It wasn't about high-stakes moments. Instead, most of his time was spent finding small ways to engage with the client and prospects outside of the work-winning meetings. Things like sending a quick email sharing an interesting article with his thoughts on how it could help them, asking for their perspective on what was important in their industry right now, grabbing a no-agenda lunch to share insights and talk about whatever was on the client's mind. This reality transformed my mindset. I realized that my mentor wasn't waiting for a big deal or a moment to initiate outreach. He was always finding a reason to reach out. Most people new to business development think they should interact with clients at certain times or in certain ways. They only interact when there's a specific commercial opportunity, such as when there's something to pitch or when a client contacts them with a specific need or a request for proposal. And when they do talk, they likely only ever talk about project-related topics. But top performers realize that in business development, to keep growing, you have to stop waiting to reach out. The quality of your technical skills, while important, isn't your biggest asset. The quality of your relationships is your biggest asset. And in order to grow, you must destroy the story you have in your head about when you're allowed to develop those relationships. It's always your move. Don't wait to start deepening your relationships. But the other reward for winning new work is more work than you have time to do, which can get stressful and difficult. You likely will feel the pain of this and put your relationship development work on pause. In other words, you might decide to shift back and forth between sprints of doing and winning work. This is the most common way to deal with the tension between winning work and completing the work that's on your plate. This month, you're focused on client calls, co-creating proposals, finalizing budgets, and outreach. The next 3 months, you go heads down and focus on executing against the work you've won. Then, once the intense push finishes, you start up the relationship engine again. This mindset is disastrous for growth. You can almost always find a good reason not to prioritize relationship building. You're always going to be busy, but relationships don't pause when you pause on developing them. They're still there, and you are either growing them or your competition is. I want you to delete this idea from your mind. I'm either doing business development or I'm doing delivery. Instead, your new mindset is the busier you are, the easier it should get. Being busy is rocket fuel for business development. When you're delivering work, you're more likely to meet with clients face-to-face. Studies show that in-person contact makes it 34 times more likely to get a yes to a request. Not 34% more likely, 34 times. That's huge. When you're delivering work, you're closer to your clients' day-to-day problems. So you'll have plenty of fresh insights you can offer across all your relationships. Finally, when you're busy, you signal the value of your time. Because when clients realize how scarce your time is, they're more eager than ever to lock in future time and expertise before it gets claimed by others. So when you're busy, don't pause development. Instead, focus on integrating little development efforts into your process every day and every week. Send a 3-sentence email suggesting dinner at some future date. Text someone with a relevant insight. Share a client's LinkedIn post. Keep your growth compounding by making small efforts towards your priority relationships. Then keep those going even when the work gets busy. But before you dive into those small efforts, there's one additional shift you need to keep in mind. Once you make these mindset shifts, you'll begin to create new possibilities. Sometimes you'll win new work that didn't exist before. And that feels great. But here's what's more likely. Let's say you make 10 attempts. A few will get a quick positive response. Some won't get a response at all. Over the short term, it feels completely random. What derails most people is that they quit in the time lag between their efforts and the rewards of those efforts. That makes sense. In the short term, you don't know if your specific efforts with a specific person will pay off. That's because there's so much you can't control. Their company's budgets, their CEO's strategy, what your competition does or doesn't do. So if you're going to make it, you have to focus on something different, what you can control. It's only over the long term that things become reliable. Those that persist get the career-changing wins they want. That means you simply need to make more offers of helpfulness. Make more attempts. Some efforts will pay off, some won't. The more attempts you make, the more value you create. You don't plan to win every deal, but you do plan to win every day by growing relationships one move at a time. To learn more moves to grow your career through business development, watch this video next. And make sure to check out my book, Give to Grow, for everything you need to know about how to use relationship development to succeed in your career.